Welcome to another edition to Motivational Sundays with Kevin and Friends. I'm going to tell you, it's been almost 3 years that we've been doing this. This show was originally created from one of more than 300 motivational quotes that I created for the contents of my books. And with studying human behavior for more than 40 years, I was always curious how one quote landed on one person to another. So the show was created. We meet every Sunday here at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we do start on time. And we share quotes, not only from the quotes that I created, but sometimes the quotes that my co-hosts have created. Hi, my name is Kevin McLemore. I am the host of this show. I am joined with my confidant, my conscience, Larnez Kinsey. She does so many things for RMK Productions. We cannot do it without her. Our show host, we have the voice, another co-host, Otis Spencer. That man's silky smooth. I'm going to tell you, without even saying good morning, pulls down all three sheets and kicks out the four pillows that's been standing there. That man is a magic man. Also, we have, when we talk about the love boat, we talk about a couple that is naturally meant to be together like two pigeons. If we talk about Christopher and Gilda James, and our educator, our voice, motivational speaker, spoken word person, and champion of young people, our co-host Denise Lopes. Emmanuel, this man, I have very few words to say because otherwise I'll be talking all day to talk about the greatness this young brother possesses. Wait till you hear what he has to say. And then we have, I know you're looking at it and you're going, how did he get Gloria Estefan? And who's that Chippendale sitting behind him? That's Mr. Jessica and Peter Chichester. They're bringing the quote today. And then we have Miss Lois Campbell. She's our new co-host joining us for the first time. You know, she's learning. She's keeping her camera still. So don't, that shakiness is not an earthquake. That is just production direction to tell her to get her hands off the camera and leave it be. We're having trouble focusing in. And then we have D-Mac, Daryl Mack. He does so many things for producing film. He is also an educator over in New York. We are blessed to have this brother on here. And then Harold McCoy. I will tell you, I cannot speak of so many words to talk about the philosopher, the history, the education you're going to get. When this man speaks, all animals, all human nature, they stop and they take a seat to listen. He has an audience to himself. And when I talk about audience to themselves, we have the star of the play that just closed a couple of weeks ago. We have our resident actor, superstar. He hates when I call him a superstar, but he is my brother from another mother. He is my conscience. When I'm feeling heavy, he lightens the load. He's the person that I lean on. This is my brother, Mr. Naheem Garcia, and he's a brother to all of us. And to our listeners that are tuning in, I want to thank you. This show is brought to you by RMK Productions and the 10 United Podcast Network. This show and every show we do is designed to educate, is designed not to make you comfortable, but to make you think. So with that said, I want to go ahead and start the show. Mr. Otis Spencer, will you please deliver the quote? We're setting it up for Jessica and Peter Chichester to deliver this quote and explain how this quote landed on them. Otis is all yours.
Good morning. We have a reading from Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another.
As iron sharpens iron, so does one person sharpens another. Dr. Jessica and Brother Peter, I know I made light of how good looking you guys are. That's also they're mediums and entrepreneurs and leaders in their community. How does this quote land on you? And like I said, all the quotes that we all have, none of us have an original. They all came from the Bible. So how does this quote?
To me, I picked this quote because even though I have a couple of degrees in English and everything, I love quotes. This quote is just so powerful. And I guess it calls us to rise higher with ourselves and the relationships that we're in. We're so often in a society where we need to be politically correct and we just need to be yesing each other and okay, and that's great, right? Be nice, be courteous, be loving, but call each other higher Stop playing games, stop BSing. Every relationship we're supposed to be in is supposed to be one of growth, of constructive criticism, of loving self-improvement. And then people often think when they come into a marriage that, okay, it's just the two of us, and I'm just gonna, tiptoe and walk between the lines. No, we're supposed to be calling each other higher. And I feel we've really done that with each other in terms of our creative capacity, in terms of our business. I think about it in terms of our children, right? Our children, when we have them, they become triggers for us too, for all of our childhood wounds that have gone unfinished. So even as a teacher, right, those wounds, they bring up wounds that we have unfinished. And we're supposed to use those relationships to sharpen each other and to get better and to call each other higher. So in a society where, yes, okay, and it seems like everybody's coming together, but then it's isolated even more and everybody's segregated even more. Just come in that loving posture and let's sharpen each other. Let's get better. Let's get to the next level. I like to say we're just like flowers. We're either growing or we're dying. We're either evolving or we're dissolving. A flower doesn't say the same, neither do we. So we need to be the person who decides to sharpen ourselves and then to be in relationships that we decide to sharpen each other, even when it doesn't always feel good, right? It's for the highest good. So if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to go into another room, which is why I'm here with you guys, right? Because you're smarter than me.
Boy, you just stole my closing line again. I can't believe that. Yeah, you're right. Society, everyone, we wake up, we're all so easy to be offended that we're always offended. Hello gets translated to a weapon. Um, your identity, which may appear to be one, becomes a weapon. We need to stop that. Your mom and dad named you, Naheem, Harold, Mac, Kevin, Denise, Otis, Spencer, Christopher, however name Larnez, whatever, for a reason. It did not have a title next to it. In the event that you're offended because I don't address you by your name and I say good morning to you, just say good morning and go on about your way. And it doesn't take much to be kind. DMAC, quote, all right, brother, look at him. He looks good in that purple shirt. That's a good color on him. Got a fresh haircut and everything.
So,
How does this, how does quote land on you, bro?
well, the first thing I think about is accountability for each other as a community. Um, it's funny when I read the quote, I have an older cousin who's a year older than me. We grew up like brothers. He would always reference that quote, "Iron sharp as iron." So last night, it kind of resonated with me, just thinking about how it speaks to accountability, how we should be accountable from one another, be more of a village, be more interactive and be more integrated as a community where we look out for one another as opposed to being self-centered and more concerned with our own individual and self-being. So, I think about as I'm sitting here talking about, I'm thinking about it now about iron sharp as iron. I'm thinking about it with my student. How does it resonate with my family? How does it resonate with my students? How does it resonate with the community where I live? And how is it that, we can uplift one another and just be more supportive and, live and work as a community. So, that's how it resonated with me. That's what it means to me.
All right. And hopefully the people that are listening are listening, because when you have hope, it allows iron to sharpen iron. Anything else is an obstacle in the way of progress. And we need to eliminate those obstacles. And believe it or not, the first roadblock starts with the person looking back at you. So let's not be that roadblock. Emmanuel, um, I don't know if I'm ready for this conversation, but go ahead and deliver it. Now we're like pulling back the other layers. Emmanuel, how you doing, bro?
Hi, Every time you say Emmanuel, I'm not sure if you're talking to me because my name is Manuel. My dad's
All
name
right.
is Emmanuel.
All right. Well, you see where I put you, Manuel. I got that. Thanks for correcting me. I am talking to you.
Cheers. Oh, the quote. Sorry. Yeah, it's very interesting quote. Like, it's just every time I think about it, though, I'm like, I'm trying to figure out like, does iron actually sharpen iron? Because I think a whetstone does a better job at sharpening iron. But I think it has to do with conversation, like honest conversation. And if that's the case, then it is a decent analogy for the power of honest conversation between people, because it does improve intelligence to be an honest conversation. So that's how it lands on me.
Boy, that is the shortest conversation we've had since you've been on here, and that was honest. I love that, and thank you for correcting me from mispronouncing your name. For some reason, I went to the biblical version of Manuel. I'll appreciate that. Denise Lopes, our educator, our protector of children, and when you talk about honesty, not a lot of people stand up for people that cannot stand for themselves, even though she is just below 5 feet. Even she is the tallest person in the room. And when she speaks, lions get nervous because when you hear her roar, she has something to say. Denise, how you doing?
You have to go to my height, don't you?
Well, I
You
got a
want to
picture of
still
you.
keep my
I
being my friend? I have PTSD from that. So
I got a picture of you in the background, and you got 7-inch heels on. You're standing shoulder to shoulder with
ah,
Otis.
remember they shoved me in a locker when I was in high school. So don't bring me back there. Come on, please.
All right.
Now, for me, this when I see this quote, I think about my students because it takes one person to change somebody's life. So if you're able to uplift somebody, if you're able to change one person, you should do that. And sometimes my children, like the students, I call them my children, they need one adult they can feel safe with, one adult that they feel that things are going to change and that care. So if you're able to help somebody grow, to help somebody have a better future, do it because somebody else did it for you because you didn't come here where you at by yourself. It had to have somebody that inspired you, that give you a hand, that help you grow and be where you at. So it's your turn to do it to someone. If you're able to help somebody, help from the heart, not expecting anything back. Because sometimes people do stuff and they expect something back. You should never expect, and you should help somebody that you know it's not going to be able to help you. That's how that landed on me.
And I appreciate you prefacing it that way, because for those people that don't know the background story to Denise, my grandfather always told me, he says the quiet person in the room was the most dangerous person in the room because when they see a wrong and they allow the wrong to exist, the wrong seems to grow. Denise, when I say you champion for people that couldn't speak to themselves, there's a system in play in most of our school systems that when it comes to the underserved, they they create rules as they go along in order to keep holding them back. Denise happens to be one of those people that's a rule breaker, that she stood up for a child that could not speak for herself. So when you talk about the sharpest blade, but as sharp as arrow in the quiver, look at it. It's been signed by Denise Lopes. And thank you for doing what you do in our system. And for those that have been taught by Denise or have been touched by Denise, 25 years ago, they'll be telling your story. And the reason why they are who they are and the reason why they're telling the story is because you stood in front of them and took it for them and spoke up for them. And we appreciate you on this show. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Peter and ask him to get off his phone because he's going to be doing his own podcast. He will be going through the same thing that I'm going through when he talks about production. You've been very close to this quote for the last couple of days because, you and your wife brought it. How does this quote land on you?
So I was writing notes, right, on everyone's things here, because there's so much great information going on, right? And so I love the Bible teachings, right? I don't like the structure of the religion, but I love the teachings of the Bible, right? And so as you come from Proverbs and iron sharpens iron, to kind of go with Manuel, there's better ways to sharpen iron, right? But it's the biblical reference, right? It's the pain of the process of the blacksmith, right? It's putting the iron into the fire and pounding on it with another hard iron object to really get that blade sharp, right? That's the effort. That's the struggle, right? That we go through, right? As individuals teaching one another. So with that, right, it's easy to be the yes man, right? It's easy to be the friend who agrees, right? Oh yeah, that's great. And I'll use I mean, we all have our stories, right? But just most recently, right, with our business, we're franchising it and we're creating a commercial basically to put out to corporations for sponsorships and memberships and so on. So I spent a good amount of time putting together this commercial and voiceover and sound and everything, and I'm relatively proud with it. And I sent it out to probably about a dozen people for their opinions and feedback, and I got 10. Oh, it looks great, it's awesome, great job. And I got 2. It's here's where it needs improvement, right? And they were 100% right. Right. I looked at it, I went through, I said, yeah. And I spent another, immense amount of time recreating something that I was pseudo proud with, but now I have something that is sharp, right? And something that's going to do the job it needs to do. So with all of us in life, the same lesson can be applied. Jessica's story, I'll steal something from you, but it's, when she was powerlifting, she's trying to be the best at something, right? But she's literally traveling to 3 hours away to go with the best benching coach in New Jersey just because he's the best and he can sharpen that skill. So it's about finding that, right? It's about going and really putting it to the test if you want to be the best at whatever you're doing. So that's where it hit me.
And if you want to sharpen iron, you have to bring the heat. And so I appreciate you're bringing that, because in order to shape anything, there has to be a source that takes something difficult to make it easy. And so I'm always curious, it's amazing for those of you that have been listening to us, that each week we send out this quote and we have a couple of days to kind of sit on it. And we all have our own interpretations at the moment. But once we get 10, 5, 4 people to give their interpretation, we're all on the same page until we turn the next page to the book. So when Lois Campbell comes up, she's got a chance to listen to each one of those quotes. And so I'm going to ask her to unmute. Lois, how do you feel about the quote? And while we're getting things set up, Lois.
Sorry, thank you again. I'm sorry, thank you. So for me, I'm from a Caribbean setting. I'm from Jamaica. So the quote, iron sharpens iron, has been in my life all my life. So what we do in Jamaica, we have 2 knives. They could be dull knives, and we put them together like that, and they get sharp. So my thing is like what you said, Kevin, is the heat. The heat would be whoever puts those 2 irons together to sharpen them, for them to get sharp. So they could go out and cut meats, or in our cases, share with other people and make other people sharp. So when Lourdes invited me yesterday and she told me the code like in the late afternoon, I'm like, that's perfect. I've been living with this. I should be able to say something about that. So besides biblically, it comes to our lives as what we should do every day, what we should share every day. And earlier in the day, we were speaking about just giving up ourselves without expecting anything back, and how much more beneficial it is, or it could be, when we share from the heart or we give from the heart what we have. So back to the irons, it's like someone thought of me as that I even here today could bring something to the team, and her iron sharpened my iron, and now I'm here with you guys trying to just be a part of this and to share my thoughts and my views. So iron sharpens iron is each of us doing what we have, sharing it with each other and doing a bigger whole. But like you said, Kevin, the heat is whoever puts those 2 irons together, or have enough trust to think that those 2 irons could be something or could share in whatever they have. Thank you.
And that's the one of the key things, when one person brings wisdom or knowledge to another person, and the other person being open to receiving that iron. And when you see the two together, it's a beautiful thing. Isn't that right, Mr. Harold McCoy? How's that quote land on you?
Yes, that's absolutely wrong. That's absolutely correct. First, I wanted to start by saying, Kevin, you do the most amazing introductions. And you just thrusted my stock through the roof with that introduction. So I appreciate that. This particular quote, well, let me just start by saying, Lois, I remember when I was younger seeing my father taking two knives and scraping the two knives together. So when I heard this quote, I knew exactly what it was that it was saying, that you need another piece of metal to sharpen other metal. And when I heard the quote was more along the lines of, it was actually used with steel. When I first heard it, it was steel sharpens steel. But let's just say metal. They use metal to sharpen metal. If you look at a knife sharpener, it's actually metal, and they have stone, etc. But the two knives rubbing together sharpen each other. And hearing the quote, "Iron sharpens iron," and it's iron sharpens iron. The way iron sharpens iron, man sharpens man, and we keep each other on point. And that's how I initially heard the quote. I try to watch what I think about, try to keep an eye on what I think about, because what I think about leads to what I say, and what I say leads to my behaviors. So I am very conscious of all three. But for this particular quote, and Daryl and all the other educators in the room, as fancy and as sophisticated and as profound of words this quote might make up, it's really something simple. It is our obligation to teach what we know to those who do not know. And that's ultimately the bottom line. That's an educator's mantra, theme. That's what you teachers get up and go to work to go do, is to sharpen another piece of steel or another iron. And that's what you're doing. You are the iron, and you're going to go sharpen another piece of iron. And it's the actual rubbing together. It's the irons coming together that actually generate the heat. Mm-hmm. So one aspect is you're the iron, but the other aspect is the other individual wanting to receive the information. And again, it goes back to the each one teach one. It takes a village. And there are tons of quotes that spin off of this. The reason why I find this quote so profound is because, as I have mentioned before in the previous podcast we did, was that it is the duty, the obligation of a civilized person to teach the uncivilized people righteousness, the knowledge of themselves, the science of everything in life, and love, peace, and happiness. And those are the things in which my piece of iron, the purpose of me sharpening my iron, or what I use my iron for to sharpen, are those things to teach, to teach. And basically that's what that quote is about, teaching. And we all have a duty. And if we don't do that duty, there's also a penalty for not doing that duty as well. And we'll all pay it someday, somehow, some way. But it is our obligation to humanity. It's an obligation. It's one of those things like, the earth rotates from, clockwise. It'll never go the other way. There are certain laws. You drop a rock, it's going to always come to the ground because of the law of gravity. So there are certain laws, and there is a law that governs humanity. And it is our obligation to teach each other to those who don't know, is our obligation as humanity. And that's how we progress in a civilized society, is by sharpening each other's piece of iron.
And that there's no spoken word more valuable than what you just said when it comes to humanity. And when we talk about iron sharpening iron, or one person sharpening another, as soon as we find out a value or a return on investment by bringing humanity together, then iron will sharpen iron. So before I go on and introduce our next co-host, Gilda and Christopher James, I'm going to ask the silky smooth sounding of our voice of our show, to repeat the quote, the people that just tuned in. Otis.
As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another.
So Gilda and Christopher, I'm going to go with Gilda. And the reason why I'm doing you guys both together today is because, you know, when you talk about, you know, from one person to another, you guys are one. When you talk about a relationship and overcoming some stuff and still being together the following morning, you guys are always one. When you're in the presence of someone that truly loves someone, when you see Christopher and Gilda, you only see one. So if you look at the background over my head and you see Christopher and Gilda, I'm going to tell you, for those of you that are struggling to find love, is that you're resisting iron to iron, and you're trying to sharpen a dull blade with another dull blade. And so with the two lovebirds that we have on here, Gilda, how does this quote land on you?
Well, land on me, only thing I could really think about, although I love my husband, I just want to bring out the fact that when I first came here and I didn't have anybody to go to as far as auditioning for different roles. And so there was one person that happened to live in the same area I lived in, and it's The Voice, called Otis. Otis was a big help for me and Chris as far as acting. You know, we didn't know very much about it because basically what we did most of our time while we was working, because we both had 40-hour job, we just did basically background work. But so when I ran into Otis, you know, he was so helpful as far as because I want to be my best at that skill. So he was very nice enough to take me and Chris under our wings and help us with different auditions, giving us different points. And all I have to say is that if it wasn't for Otis, you know, as far as acting ability, I don't know where I would be. So I'm just throwing that out and saying thank you very much, Otis, for taking the time.
My pleasure.
Iron sharpen iron.
Yep. And from one person sharpening another person. And look what you had. That's the longest response that we've had. We've done, this is the 125th show that we've done. And that's the longest that she has ever said anything. She used to have a conversation that had something called fear, evidence appearing to be real to some people. And see what happens when you're surrounded in a safe place. All her big brothers and all her big sisters with her. We love you. Christopher, I hope you don't mind of us saying we love your wife and we love you too. And thank you again. I'm always going to say this. I grew up in a military family. And especially knowing that the history of people in color that have been dismissed of our contributions, not only to our education, but to this country itself. I want to thank you for your contribution, not only as a military vet, as a person of color, fighting for a country that really has not been fighting for you, not even for today. And just remember, and I'll say this, education is not designed to make you think. And this is the reason why we have an open forum here. It's not designed to make you comfortable. It's designed to make you think. So for those of you that are listening to these quotes, if you're easily to be offended, relax, because we're trying to teach you. We're trying to make an impression in you. And like Jessica said, you know, you surround yourself by people because you don't want to be the smartest person in the room, because otherwise you're in a room by yourself. But when you're in a room like I am today, I feel blessed. So, Christopher, I'm blessed to know you.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I appreciate that. You know, I was probably just as amazed as you were to have Gilda speak for so long. I'm gonna have to say, you know, she said it all. I'm gonna just be quiet. But no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I can't help it. The quote being biblical sort of carries its own connotation. And I have always felt that no matter what I have right now, whatever I have to offer, there's someone who has a little bit more. And it's not a greed thing, but it's simply an exchange thing. I want to also have whatever you have to offer. In other words, I'll say what little bit I've got, but I'm going to desperately desire whatever you have, not so much to own it, but to share it, to have a little bit of it also. It's sort of like the guy on the buffet table, a really big, just grabbing a little bit of everything until we're at the end of the table, he can barely carry his plate. That's pretty much the way I look at life. I want to just keep sampling, keep taking a little bit of this, a little bit of that, to where my plate is at its, pouring over level. It's steel sharpening steel, but on my own little selfish level, it's me grabbing all that I could possibly get from everyone who ever comes in contact with me. And if I can offer anything in return, I'm more than willing to do that. But my initial response, I guess it's from my toddler days. I want to get as much as I can from you that I can take and add to what I already have. It's the greedy little fat child in me. I'll admit to that. But I think that's the way we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be open to every single possibility, to add to our own personalities, and maybe in a way offer more in the sharing to other people. But nonetheless, we all have to admit that we are selfish when it comes to a lot of the things that we possess, things that we gather. It's being selfish and yet at the same time being more than willing to share. Look, I've collected all of this along the buffet table. This is what I came up with. If there's anything in here that you think is usable or desirable, you can either take from here or back at the buffet table. There's more. But the idea that I will grab all that I can for myself and yet be at the same time willing to openly share and offer to you whatever I've collected over my time at the buffet table or my time in life.
You ever notice that throughout our lifetime, the wisest of people give you the best education for free? The wisest of people give you the best education is free.
It's another great quote.
Yep. Thank you for your share. Larnez, this person, I will tell you, and I can go on about each and every individual on here. We all were brought together and we met as strangers. And we have been through some stuff over 125 episodes, both personally and professionally. And we have hung in there. We have supported. We're probably closer than most brothers and sisters that are born in the same blood, but we share the same body temperature. We share the same mindset. And when I talk about the circle of friends that I have, they don't drive by an accident. They stop and help. Each and every last one of these people that is on this podcast that we're sharing with our audience and the world, these are those type of people. You're meeting these type of people that give without asking for anything in return. So when you're listening to the conversations that we're having here, don't just listen with a closed mind or be offended or criticize how the show is set up or how someone enunciates a word or how someone forgot someone's name or whatever. I want you to take a good look at yourself and reach down into your heart and have a conversation. Are you giving or bringing people together? because that's what your heart tells you, or you're looking for something in return? Because a dull blade can't cut anything. All right. So with that said, Lonez, how does this quote land on you?
Well, good day, everyone. This is a lot to follow. Beautiful words spoken from everyone. The process of sharpening represents mutual exchange, a symbolic relationship between two individuals. It reminds me of a scripture from the book of Malachi that says, "Then those who feared the Lord spoke to each other, and the Lord listened and heard them." So when you surround yourself with friends on the same spiritual wavelength as you, something magical happens. It's like you're creating a sacred space where your conversations aren't just casual chats, they're divine dialogues. Imagine just kicking it with your crew and you're vibing on that spiritual level, talking about God and faith and deeper meaning of life. Well, guess what? The big guy upstairs is all ears. He's tuning in. He's listening to every word. He's soaking up the positive energy you're putting out there. So the lesson here from this quote is clear. Get yourself some friends on the same spiritual journey as you. When you come together and chat about God, the universe, and everything in between, know that you're creating something special. It's sending a signal to the heavens. And trust me, the Almighty, He's picking up everything you're putting down. So surround yourself with these divine connections and watch your conversations move mountains. That's how this quote hit me.
Drop the mic on that. Otis, you know something? I hate doing this to you, to have you follow Larnez. You thought I was going to go to Naheem, but I'm going to go to the voice because I'm going to ask you to give your interpretation. But I do need to hear that voice one more time. Oh, I love hearing that voice. And for anyone that's listening to the show, you have not hired Otis Spencer to do a voiceover. Shame on you. Otis, fire away.
As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Yes, iron sharpens iron, and one person can sharpen another if you have an open mind. And I think as we send kids to school to learn, but with the technology that we have today, it's a distraction. When we grew up, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have all these other things. We had to pay attention in school. So these distractions get in the way. And then I also think of the two twins that I had been taking care of. And while they were here, and I said, we have to do something with your life. I sold the idea to send them off to Job Corps. They hesitated, and I said, you need to do something. You need to improve yourselves. You can't sit around playing games all day. They ended up going off to Job Corps. One is still there. The other got kicked out because he didn't want to do what he was told to do. So you have to be like a sponge. You have to be ready and willing to absorb the knowledge that someone's there trying to give you, how to set your life up for the future. So be like a sponge. Be ready, absorb, take the knowledge that other people are out there ready and willing to give you.
Be like a sponge. You have to be an open book. I mean, every book, if you peel back and release the black ink, provide you an opportunity to write your own story. And your story actually is an open door to someone else that are struggling with their own story as it is until they come into the light. I will tell you, and I will say this because I've had many conversations with this young brother, that to see a man put his ask out there to say, give me something that has some meat on the bone. And then all of a sudden, someone says, there's an Austin Wilson play that I'd like to have a young man be the star of. They have 10, 15 pages of dialogue to run for 2.5 hours, to be the star of King Handley, the second play, and to have one of our family members stand up. And we know you went through some stuff to get to the point that you were at, But, just like Peter said earlier, when he sent out his thing wanting the feedback for someone, a lot of us play the game nice because we're so afraid of what that person may think of us if we tell them exactly what it is. But you also have to remember in this family, when we send something out, we only want the truth because we're trying to make it right for you guys to listen to. Naheem, I know you had many of these conversations before you got it right. And when the night that we got a chance to see him, there were only 80% of him getting it right to us. It felt like 110. But I'm going to tell you, in that group 98 degrees, I will tell you, in the coldest of snowstorm, every step Naheem took, there was fire on those steps. So with that said, Naheem, how does this quote land on you? And I know for a fact I'm going to hate following you. It probably would help if you unmute.
It brings me to another bit. Thank you, first of all, thank you. And it brings me to another biblical quote. When I say unto the wicked, thou shalt surely die, thou not giveth warning, nor warn the wicked from their wicked ways to save their life. That same wicked man would die in his own iniquity, and his blood would I quiet thy hand. Example, if you see a child getting ready to touch a hot oven and you don't warn that child that they're getting ready to touch a hot oven and get hurt, their blood is on your hand. We are held responsible for each other. We are held accountable for each other. It's our job to strip down the silos. It is our job to make sure that we take that 2 pieces of knife and sharpen them up. It is our job to make sure that we take care of each other. If you are civilized and you have knowledge of yourself and you know that there's somebody running around here that needs to be civilized, it is your job to enlighten them. It is your job to hold them responsible. It is our job to hold each other accountable, as I heard earlier before. It is our job to make sure that we take care of each other. We got to stop walking around here hating on ourselves and then reflecting that on somebody else. It is our job. It is our job to keep those 2 pieces still. One might have magnetic in it, one might not. And the piece with magnetic will attract the piece without. It is your job to teach each one. What is it? Each one, teach one. It is our job.
Reach one, teach one. That's my
Reach one,
grandpa's
teach
quote.
one. Anyway, you got the point. It is your job. It is your job to make sure that we hold each other accountable. And it is your job to make sure that you spread love. Love is a great degree of understanding. It's what you draw up after you've acquired that information and the way to express that information. Because you just can't say it any way you want. You just can't say to somebody, I love you in an inappropriate moment, because that might come across differently. It's like you said earlier, Kevin, you got to make sure when you say hello to somebody, that somebody don't run off with that and start thinking it's a chance to get a conversation, unnecessary conversation or unnecessary information exchange. No. Good morning is good morning. Keep it moving. That's all it is. Because if you say it in the right frequency, somebody gonna walk with it and they're gonna take it and pass it on. That's how that laid on me.
Peace.
Right. Give it up. Again, Mike drops all the way through. It's amazing. 9 words. And listen to what, based on interpretation and people's perspective, how 9 simple words came out. Iron does sharpen iron. And one person can make an impact on another person. I will tell you this. Jessica said it last week when she talked about the 3 glasses of water. 1, you pour love into. The second, you condemn or offend. And then the third, you ignore. You look at when you talk about the phrase and that analogy of iron sharpens iron. Wise people surround themselves with people with greater wisdom in order to become one of those people that can pass on wisdom. Iron sharpens iron. A person sharpens another person by pouring into them. But in order for that iron to get hot, that person has to be open to receiving that. And like Naheem says, if good morning or hello transfers to something else other than just a kind greeting in it, you have to take a good look at yourself. None of us are perfect. I'm not perfect. But if you start pointing the finger at everyone else, I want you to take 5 seconds to look at your own hands. And so with that said, this has been another episode of Motivational Sundays with Kevin and Friends. We meet here every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We bring in powerful quotes. Sometimes they make us laugh. Sometimes they make you think. If you like what you heard, go to our YouTube page and subscribe to RMK Productions. If you'd like to be a guest on here, the information's there. Just don't bring us any drama. We're always welcome. You could be a co-host. We're probably the only podcast that lets total strangers into our home. But we will kick you out if you show up using the bathroom on our show. We don't have that. So whoever that was, don't ever come back. But if you like it, subscribe and share. If you make some comments to how we can improve our show, or you'd like to get in touch with any of our guests, hit us up at info@rmkproductions.org. And I want to thank you. My hashtag is find 1,000 reasons to be kind to someone. As my grandfather has always said, when you get to a point in life, it's your duty to do so. He said, this is the way I've learned it, reach one, teach one. And with that said, we do what?
Fade to black.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are out. Until next time, talk to you later.